Welcome to Practically Tactical. This is our live show streaming to you on YouTube, but you can also catch all of our shows on iTunes in a podcast format. New episodes drop every Sunday. So for everybody out there, I got just an awesome show for you guys tonight. Probably the two smartest guys on the planet are on the show with me today, so it's going to be an awesome show. So, or at least two of the best-looking beards. One of the two, maybe both. But for everybody out there watching on YouTube land, please go ahead if you guys got any comments, questions, you want to get involved in the chat, please, in the conversation, please put them in the chat window right there. We'll be hitting on that and taking some of your comments and questions throughout the show. So please put those in, strike up a conversation in there. It'll be an awesome time. So also for everybody that's watching on YouTube, please go ahead and click that like and share button. It would really help. And also, I need to mention that everything we're talking about today is in the description box below. So if you want links to the MDFI, we got links in there. Then we have links to, of course, the Protecting Liberty Kickstarter project done by Billy here from Amidst the Noise. The link is right there as well to his Kickstarter. And if you're unfamiliar with Billy, which I hope you're not, I have a link to his original video that set the internet on fire. So all those links are down there. Please go ahead and check those out. And otherwise, I don't have any pre-podcast show notes, so let's go ahead and start the show here. Welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 69, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show is a slightly more practical approach to the firearms lifestyle. The show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, and shooting with some of the best firearms instructors, figures, and shooters in the firearms industry. For more information on the show, links to our guests, guns, and gear we discuss, please visit practacpodcast.com/069. On this episode, we're joined from Billy Johnson from Amidst the Noise and Trek from MDFI. Billy, sir, thank you for coming on. I greatly appreciate it. I'm a huge fan.
Well, hey, thanks for having me, Nick. And I appreciate you watching the videos and sharing them.
Oh. Trek, are you geeked out as I am right now, or is that could also just be like the millions of Easter candy I stole from my kids? One of those. But are you excited as I am?
Absolutely.
But Trek, no, thank you for coming on, sir. I really appreciate it. Again, one of the most eloquent and smart guys in the firearms industry that I know. So thank you for coming on and helping me maybe make the show a little bit smarter, if that's even the correct term. But for everybody out there, please go ahead and check out the show notes on this episode. In the show notes, we'll have a link to Billy's Kickstarter that he's doing called Protecting Liberty, which we'll be discussing as well. If you're unfamiliar with Billy Amidst the Noise, I'll have a link to his original video, his YouTube channel as well. And, of course, I'll have links to MDFI here with Trek and all the classes that they offer at trainmdfi.com. So we got a lot to cover here, so I'm going to jump straight into it here. So when we look at everything that's going on right now, Billy, and obviously, you know, the show obviously features, we talk about firearms all the time, but in a more broader sense, if I mean, in my opinion, you know, freedom and liberty and guns are all interconnected through this crazy thing, the Constitution, and we're not talking about just the Second Amendment under attack. We're talking about liberty and freedom itself is under attack, isn't it?
I would say yes, but I would say I think we've seen a shift since September 11th. But, you know, freedom, liberty has kind of always been at odds with power and control since actually the founding of this country. And I think, you know, it's interesting when you look back, like 7 years after the Bill of Rights was signed, the Sedition Act was signed by the Federalists, and that made it a crime to criticize the government. So 7 years after the Bill of Rights, the Federalists passed a law. You know, many of these men at that time fought through the Revolutionary War, right? Like they know what it was about, and all those liberties they fought for, they passed a law and make it illegal to criticize the government. And you know, that was in response to the Republicans at the time criticizing them. I mean, there was a lot of tension at the time with potential war with France, and a lot of people were afraid, and so then you get that law. So we kind of have a long history of things like this happening. I mean, you know, FDR and, you know, the internment of 110,000 Japanese Americans, 2/3 were American citizens. I mean, no one went to jail over that.
Can you imagine if that would happen nowadays?
You know, well, I think I laugh when people say that, oh, we've learned from history that's never going to happen again. And I would say what we see right now with NSA spying is almost like a virtual internment camp. Um, and it's almost even more sinister because the way surveillance works and how it affects you um, really can damage a free society. So, things have been happening for a long time, and liberty has been under threat for a long time. It always has had uh, it's been at odds with anybody in a position of power and control. But 9/11, I think, changed everything, and I think we've seen that accelerating even more.
Okay. Now, specifically, it's something interesting too, and I don't know if people on the other side don't understand it, or maybe some people even on our, I guess, our own side, if we use that term. The Second Amendment is actually a civil right, isn't it? I mean,
Sure, I mean,
it seems like,
it's a natural right, civil right, constitutionally protected right,
yeah.
human right.
And the way I see things going is what happens if we treated all of these other civil rights like, if those same ones were treated like the Second Amendment, like you have to go get a license to vote, or you got to go through a background check to vote, or you have to go do all these other steps, to do what should be normal, everyday constitutional civil rights. Do you think that might change people's mind, or I don't know? If that's
No,
something that kind of eats at me a little bit, but
the first argument you always hear there is, well, but none of those other rights hurt people. You always see that the Second Amendment, people get hurt by it. That's the first thing that you always hear people say. And I will say, well, it also protects people as well. But I'll go a step further. All of our rights are dangerous, and they should be, right? The freedom of speech is amazingly dangerous. The things that can be said, right? The challenge to people's ideas and their government, right? The speech we should be protecting the most is the most vile speech, the speech that we disagree with. That's the speech we should be standing up for. Fourth Amendment's amazingly dangerous, right? To the state. When you think about privacy, what can people be doing in privacy? They could be plotting something. So there's a danger there with privacy, and there should be. But more importantly, when you think of like the Fifth and Sixth Amendment, our right to a trial and habeas corpus, think about that. The possibility that a guilty person can get off, right? That's what we stand for, right? We protect these rights because 1 out of 100 person that might actually go through a trial might actually be a guilty person and they get off. That's dangerous. So our rights should be dangerous. I reject anybody that says our rights should be safe. They're designed to be dangerous.
You're shaking your head there.
Yeah, when you listen to Bill, I mean, this is why I'm so excited to see this documentary come to fruition, because I do consider myself up on events, but when I hear Bill talk, all I can do is nod my head in agreement because he's got it locked down. What we're seeing, just as Billy was talking about, we're seeing a shift in society to accept irresponsible behavior and trying to protect everybody from irresponsible behavior instead of everybody holding people to a responsible standard. And so if you take a look at one of my favorite examples that I've used, and I just wrote a letter to Michigan Senator Mike Green regarding a stance on open carry versus concealed carry in the state of Michigan. And I used an example about the private business owner in the state of Michigan that saves his money, buys a bar, wants to have a great little dive where people can come in, have a drink, and have a cigar, have a cigarette. And now the government is telling them, this is your privately owned establishment, and you cannot do that. We have to protect all of these people in this bar from the harmful effects of cigar smoke and cigarette smoke, and your employees from the same, instead of saying, hey, let's capitalize on the fact that we have got a bar. All these bars are smoking, so if there's that big of an outcry for people that don't like a smoky environment, why don't we go ahead and make a smoke-free bar? But instead we say, no, you grown adults, you cannot be responsible enough. We must protect you from yourselves, so you're not going to allow you to have cigarette smoking in your establishment, and then they're going to go ahead and use government force, and it doesn't have to be at the point of a gun, but it could be a fine, a tax, an audit, whatever it might be, to make sure that people are living to other people's standards. Instead of just saying you're a responsible adult, if you believe that that beer that you like so much is worth an evening of having a smoke-filled lungs, we're saying that you can't do that. You can't make the grown choice. And just exactly what Billy's talking about, we're seeing that. We're seeing people are saying you're going to have to abide by what we feel is right versus living dangerously. And freedom is incredibly dangerous when you look at it, and we see it on Facebook all the time. People, the emotional posts that people are making that they disagree with somebody else's way of life. Well, tough. It's somebody else's life. What has it done to you? But we as a society are saying, no, you've got to bake that cake. You can't say no. And that's a huge thing. So yeah, it is. It's a downward spiral based on catering to those that can't handle the dangerous freedom that we deserve as human beings.
Yeah, man, it's just, well, and again, this is the great part about what I think what Billy's doing here is, again, for everybody out there watching on YouTube and listening on podcasts, please check the show notes. There's a link to his Kickstarter, and looking to inform. And I guess Billy has for those, again, if you haven't watched the videos, please check that out as well. He has a very fantastic way of delivering information, making it easy to process and easy to understand. So, when you look, and again, I want to hit on that shortly here, but I kind of want to get to some other issues here of, and Billy, maybe you can do on this, comment on this from your videos. When you look at American society in general, how do they respond to, Fourth Amendment or Fifth Amendment? Does any of that click with people? From feedback that you get from videos?
Sure. I mean, sure. I hear from people that care about it. I think the people that watch my videos are people that care about the topics I'm talking about. So I have a pretty target market as far as who I'm talking to. So my perspective on that is probably a little different than when I look out into the country. But I think what's happened with the NSA is a perfect example. I mean, everything we've learned about that our government is doing, and even recently, just a couple of days ago, when we found out the DEA was recording, or it's been collecting phone data 10 years before September 11th, and the fact that all that information that we've learned over the past couple of years and nothing has changed, I think that tells you what people think about their Fourth Amendment rights. And it's a sad state that we cannot get more people involved in this. It's a sad state that nothing's happened with it. And as far as we know right now, everything's going on that was going on before all this information came out.
One of the biggest things that I see with the Fourth Amendment is the classic, well, I've got nothing to hide, so I really don't care about it. And I have a family member that has said that around, I think, the Thanksgiving dinner table, and sit there stupefied to hear that that's okay. That because I'm not doing anything wrong, what do I care? And it's a slippery slope when we start talking NSA. I mean, watching any of this stuff about the NSA programs will just make your blood boil, or make your blood turn cold, with just the wantless, reckless abandon for the Fourth Amendment rights of citizens of this great country. And then you get the attitude, because you've never been affected by it, to say, well, I really don't care, until the day that you do care, until they have tread past that line that you feel is okay, and by that time it's way too late. It is absolutely too late.
All the people, Glenn Greenwald said this in a TED Talk, but because obviously he's been on the front lines of the Snowden leaks, and he says in talks, people always come up to him and say, I have nothing to hide. And he's like, well, what? Here's my email address. When you go home, I want you to email me all of your passwords to all of your email accounts, so I can just go through them and publish whatever I want.
Perfect.
And he said, to this day, no one's ever taken him up on it. Because as soon as you start to approach it like that, well, if you have nothing to hide, let's take this podcast into your bathroom, and why don't you show us your medicine cabinet, right? What medicines are you on? Why don't you just release your medical records? And then people are like, well, okay, yeah, I don't want people to know that. Well, granted, it might not be state secrets, but it's your business, it's your information, and no one has a right to reveal that but you. That's how it works.
That's perfect.
No, do people even know that their rights are being violated? I mean, to be fair, this is kind of a little bit of setup. We talked earlier on the phone today, and it was a great conversation. We look at me and Trek had about the Boston bombing and stuff of the people being forced out of their homes, and do they even have a right to object or not, or it's kind of an interesting aspect of do people even know A, what's going on, or B, do they care enough to get involved in it? And that's something that is kind of an interesting part of, do people even know that their rights are being violated?
Well, one of my mentors out there, Alan Normandy at Battlecom, the amount of time I've spent on the phone with him talking about things in the ways of the wild world are undocumentable. There's so much time. But we talked ad nauseum about the Fourth Amendment issues with the Boston Marathon bombing, and what we saw. And we live in a society where, and I think Billy and I have talked about this, you're in a society where Americans have the attention span of a fruit fly. And if you don't get it out on social media in a clip that's 30 seconds or less, you could say the secret of life at 31 seconds, and they're already gone. They're gone, and that's the reality. They want to find out what Kim Kardashian has done today and what Miley Cyrus is up to, and it's too late. So you look at all these clips of the police that were forcing their way into people's homes. 2 idiots, thank goodness the second one was just convicted, hopefully rightfully so on all these counts. These real quick clips of all these people being rousted out of their homes at gunpoint by the Boston police and by all the state agencies and everybody that was in the manhunt, and there was so much outrage. And you know what? I'm gonna bet money that there was rightful reason for there to be outrage, and in some situations there was rightful reason for outrage, but not legal reason for outrage. But what we saw is so many people just said, okay. And so, in the discussion that I've had with Alan Normandy, you may have your constitutional rights violated because it happens. Humans they're not perfect. They're going to make mistakes. We see it all the time. But it's the people after the fact, after the bad guy's been caught, that need to stand up and go, hey, I understand what you guys were doing. However, my constitutional rights were violated. I'm going to bring it up, and we need to have a serious discussion about whether exigent circumstances were involved, or was in fact my constitutional rights violated. And then you have a professional discourse. Hopefully, if there were violations, it gets fixed so it doesn't happen again. But it's what happens when it keeps getting tread on, and keeps getting tread on, and there's no repercussions for it, that you start to have major issues. So that's just one of many examples that we see. And as Billy pointed out, the NSA, nobody seems to care. You've got a guy that can't even come back to his home country. The rest of the world is listening to him, but we're in a media blackout. And this guy is detailing how our own government is using systems designed to keep us protected from enemies by treating the American citizenry as enemies. We should be paying attention to this stuff.
Oh, and some kind of hit home too, and kind of connecting the dots here is if you connect, for example, we talk about the World War II Japanese internment camps. There was actually one close to my original hometown in Emmett, Idaho, called I think it's called Mini Doka, something similar to that in Idaho, and so that is a prevalent thing out there. That's something that we visited in elementary school as part of history. Not that it was. Again, not that it was right.
I didn't even learn that in elementary school. I don't ever recall. Now, granted, I could have been gone that day. I don't ever recall learning about the internment of Japanese Americans during World War II in middle school or high school.
Wow.
Yeah. If I did, wow, I wasn't paying attention. But I kind of think something like that would have stuck with me. I didn't learn about that till much later. And it's interesting how we just kind of gloss over some of those obviously major violations of so many people's rights. And people need to know. I mean, those people, so many of those people lost everything. They lost their property, their dignity was taken, their freedom was taken, and they didn't do anything. It's such a horrible tragedy, and there's so much to learn from that, but we just kind of swept it under the rug.
Yeah, well, and the big part there too is for those that aren't familiar, every family was allowed to take 2 suitcases 2 suitcases, and that was it. And then they were at the camp. And like you said, it was American citizens. And how we're connecting the dots of this, and for some people, World War II to now to NSA, back then they were U.S. citizens that were guaranteed constitutional rights. And you look at today now with citizens of guaranteed constitutional rights, both are being violated to massive degrees. And and again, you go back to the NSA thing of I mean, they're probably watching right now. I wish there was maybe a little more, bump up the numbers a little bit, But again, we're, not that downloads matter, but you compare these things here, and you're just like, wow, where's the outrage again? Where they're violating literally. I mean, I'm just thinking, if the NSA read my emails, how many parts of my life that violates, or tracking all the phone calls that I make and all that type of stuff. Where's the outcry with that? And
I think what you see with surveillance, which is so concerning to me, is often it's invisible to the person that's under surveillance. So a lot of times people think, well, if I don't feel it, right, you're not locking me up in a jail cell, you're not busting in my front door. If I don't feel it, then it must not be that bad. And I think that's how a lot of people think about it. I don't think about it that way. I'll give you an example. Once, kind of most of this information came out, and I started looking at the documents, and I was just kind of like, my jaw was in my lap. I was reading all the documents. I was like, wow. I mean, we knew something was going on from the Bush administration. We just didn't know how extensive it was. After perusing through all those documents for weeks and weeks and weeks, and making that, my NSA Part 1 and Part 2 videos, it started to really click with me. And I noticed when I was on a phone call with someone, and it was something about we were talking about a bombing or something, and I forgot, like overseas or something. And I said the word, and I stopped, and I was like, wow, that's probably a word I shouldn't say on the phone. Just really innocent, it just kind of clicked in my head, and I thought about it. And then the next time, I'm not going to use that word on the phone. And it's amazing. That's just a very minor detail on how this surveillance just kind of affected my brain and made me think about it. And now I think about the things that I wouldn't say on the phone. And you want to talk about violating my First Amendment rights, right? You're not only violating my Fourth Amendment rights, but you're using the Fourth Amendment to violate my First Amendment rights, because now I can't stop thinking about that, so I'm self-censoring myself. Wow, how horrible is that? And I'm just a guy having a conversation with someone on the phone. And so surveillance is really interesting to me on how it starts to change your mind, and what people do when they know they're being, when they know they're under surveillance. People change their behaviors, and that's really concerning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I mean, are we kind of on this? I mean, if you look at if we say a downward slope as a country of, in the show notes I have spineless. Now I'm sitting here thinking. Now you're saying that, and I'm like, wow, that's kind of a strong word, isn't it? Just of what you talked about made me think about what I'm saying now. But is this kind of a downward slope of we have spineless, or as Trek has quoted before on the show, intolerant, tolerant people, and we're coming down to this culmination of things that, man, I don't even know how you would put this all, bundle it all together in an amount of words. But where are we headed?
Well, we've got, in just where we were talking, just up to this point, we have a society where years ago, the U.S. government, I believe, I want to say, and please don't hold me to this, I believe it was President Clinton came out and admitted on live TV, on live news, about decades before, about the U.S. government was injecting African American males with syphilis to find out what in the heck was going to happen to them. And it was a completely, whether it was classified or kept away from the American people. And then 50 years from that point, they're like, hey, we're making a press announcement. We want to apologize on behalf of the United States government. And it was in the news for all of a day, and then it just disappeared and went to the bottom of everybody's regular scheduled newscast, and people were kind of like, oh, 50 years ago it kind of sucked. but they don't understand the broad what that actually means for us in today, regardless of the fact it was 50 years ago. The United States government, if they had the capability to do it to a group of Americans at that point in time, it can be done at any point in time. And so what we have is a combination of people that are apathetic, where they say, oh, I have nothing to hide, or oh, that was 50 years ago. And now what we're starting to do is we're starting to see a community, a group of Americans that are very apathetic and don't seem to care because cable TV is keeping them occupied. And then you have the intentional side, where just like Fast and Furious, which you know I'm very passionate about, Fast and Furious, where they're actually trying, at the cost of hundreds of lives to include American lives, trying to fabricate evidence to demonize a right, a God-given right, whether you're religious or not, a human right, that is guaranteed in our Constitution through helping criminal enterprise. And that's so when you have an apathetic group of society and then people, a small group that are doing things intentionally, there's no one to hold them accountable. And that's what we're starting to see.
Yeah, that was the Tuskegee Project.
Okay.
And yeah, you nailed it there.
And think about this. We didn't apologize, as I say we as the government. We did not apologize for the Japanese internment until Ronald Reagan's administration. Right? I think it was like 1988, 1987, 1988. Isn't that unbelievable? We're talking over 40 years later to actually issue an apology. We're sorry we did that. 110,000 people indefinitely detained. It's
Right.
shocking.
It's mind blowing. I mean, and again too, for everybody out there, look it up. It's not like we put them up in like Hilton's. You know, it's by no means that. It is literally small buildings out in the middle of nowhere, and that's where they stayed. But you kind of hit on there about, and this is a great segue of, you're talking about media clips and the media, and obviously Billy here has done some excellent work on kind of reporting real facts. We'll say, what is this connection between the government and then the media to spread lies? You know, I mean, you can look at the Sharon Watts and of course Brian Terry, Fast and Furious, on and on and on and on. What is this kind of new connection that's going on between government and then media, spreading lies and misinformation, Billy?
I don't think there's, I think it's honestly people in the media want a heads up to breaking information, so they'll do whatever someone asks them to do in order to get that advantage on their competition. I think that's probably more prevalent than anything. I really, it's hard to say. I'm not going to speculate that. Does the press secretary in the White House have a go-to list of people that will publish anything he wants? Probably. But I think that's been going on for a very long time. I mean, some of those relationships, a press secretary knows where to get something published when he needs something published. But I think what's more interesting you see in the competition in the news is everybody wants to beat everybody with breaking news across your phone, right? So I think you see in a lot of these newsrooms, they're willing to do whatever it takes to get that insider information from the government. So I think that's a real concern. And then they don't vet the information when they get it. And I talk about this in my video, on disinfo, which I already forgot the title of it. But it's about disinfo. And I think what you see now is when there were very few options on where to get a story out. So say if you were someone in a position of power, right, you could kind of control the story because there were very few access points. Now it's all over the place, right? Anybody can publish something, anybody can put something on the internet. So how do you control the story? Well, anybody knows when it comes to disinformation, there's always some truth in disinformation, right? That's the great thing about disinformation. You can put the truth out there, but then you flood all these access points with wrong information as well. So all this information's out there. No one really knows what's right and what's wrong. Somewhere out there, the truth is out there. Just we don't know. So it's an interesting way to control the press. It's shifted a lot, I think, before kind of this new media. You could really control those access points. There was a lot more, control going on. Anything that left the White House had to come from the press corps. Now it can come from all over the place, and who knows what the press secretary. I mean, he could have a direct phone line into the AP for all we know. I have no idea, but it's just not. He's just not talking to the press corps anymore. They're sending tweets out. They're uploading videos. They're all over the place, and the press corps knows this. And this is why you see recently, in the past couple of years, the press corps has really been upset with the administration, with the access that they're giving them, with the information that they're giving them. And I think this is a new shift in new media, and it's something that we should pay attention to. I mean, this is the first president that actually has his own grassroots organization, right? Organization for Action. This is the first time that's happened. He took his campaign team, rolled it in to this nonprofit, which is his own grassroots. It's going to happen now. Every single president is going to do this. So the president of the United States has his own grassroots organization. Why does he need the press corps?
Yeah.
He can go create whatever he wants in this organization over here. And that's a new thing. We have never seen that before. And where that's going to go, I mean, I can't even imagine at this point.
Sure.
Well, Trek, when and maybe I should have said lies, but coverage or the amount of time that they spend, you compare, for example, the Mother's Demand, what is it? Mother's Demand.
Moms Demand Action for gun
okay.
sense in America.
Oh, okay. I thought it was attention. I was going to say attention. But you compare that, and I know they just released something just the other day that they released all this disinformation, and again there's a little bit of truth if they pull something from the CDC. There's that little bit of truth in there, like Billy just said, but then a whole lot of other stuff. But you compare that, let's say, that coverage to Trek, for those that aren't familiar, works with the Brian Terry Foundation, just rode his bike from Michigan all the way to Arizona to raise over $20,000 for the foundation, is pledged to raise $100,000. Amazing things. When you look at the coverage of the Moms Demand Attention versus Brian Terry, a Marine veteran, correct? Marines, right?
Correct.
Marine veteran, served his country, then got out of the service, and then continued to serve his country, stand-up gentleman, and lost his life, and then the whole cover-up on that deal. When you look at the coverage between the two, isn't there a really big imbalance of just this one place that's just spreading information versus losing a U.S. citizen and a cover-up and not being able to find out any information about it?
Sure. Well, you've got, just as we were, I'll spin up to where I was. We were talking about you have an apathetic society that has the attention span of a fruit fly because Facebook and Instagram are what people run their lives on now. And then you have, certain entities, especially the Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America, which if they did any historical research, if they did actually any research whatsoever, they would find out that the societies out there that have been wiped off the face of the earth did so because they didn't have the means to defend themselves from government. That's just a reality. I mean, that's just it's fact. And so if they did any kind of research into history and how those that don't remember it are doomed to repeat it, we would be doing far better. So you've got an apathetic group, you have a group that's trying to spread disinformation, but then you also just have the normal spin that Billy was talking about, where you have 5 years, roughly 5 years from when an American hero was killed, and now due to some of the family members, Brian Terry's family members, coming out writing a letter to a congressman, senator, regarding the fact that it's been 5 years and people haven't even been held accountable for what happened in the desert of Arizona that long ago. Maybe it's because it's near an election year. We're starting to see some traction, but that's the problem, is things are getting buried for the inconsequential, because the people that have the power are keeping us occupied with what they need to. Just as as Billy pointed out, no one's asking the questions, and nobody's even taking the time to answer them, because they can just go ahead to their own press buddies and get whatever they want posted out there. So it really does take a responsible citizen to do some digging, to get to the bottom of, as you mentioned, there's always some truth. So stop reposting crap and vet stuff before you're sharing information, because all we're doing is we are spreading the disinformation because we have a knee-jerk reaction to a title and an article that could be the Duffel blog for all we know.
Or how often is the title, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the article. I mean, you see this on Twitter 9 out of 10 times. This is how it works, right? You're like, wow, that's a really nice inflammatory, headline there, and then you click on it and you're like, that's not even in the article.
Right.
And there's absolutely almost zero ethics left in journalism. And I always like to say journalism because there's very few of them left.
It's interesting you say that. I've had one experience with a news organization where they stopped the program to apologize for the news reporter being unobjective to the story, and that was the BBC. I always stream in the BBC. They seem to have the most up-to-date news stories out there, but they literally they had a reporter who was giving an opinion, and about 5 minutes after that, they'd stopped and apologized because they were not reporting the news, they were giving an opinion. And that was very, very interesting because turn on CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, name the news agency now, and it's nothing but 8 panels of talking heads yelling at one another. And we're not hearing news, we're hearing opinion. We're hearing what they want us to hear.
News commentary has absolutely blended in, and hard news is virtually almost gone. I mean, it's almost all commentary now. And the sad part of this is a lot of Americans don't know the difference.
Absolutely.
They don't know when they're watching Rachel Maddow or Bill O'Reilly that they're news commentators. Okay, they're reporting the news through their lens. And everybody, even a hard news journalist, is reporting the news through their lens. We always have to remember that this illusion that the press can be unbiased has done more damage than bias itself. Okay? We have to understand everybody has a bias, absolutely everybody. And I appreciate listening to someone when I know what it is. What I don't like is when I'm hearing the story and I'm like, okay, I can tell this guy's a news commentator. He's not giving me hard news here. If he's going to do that, I want to know where he stands. Just come out and tell me where you stand on it, so then I can actually analyze what you're commenting on through that lens. Now, most people don't have the time to do this. Most people don't care about this. Most people just believe what they hear. It's unfortunate, but that's what we're kind of working against. We're working against this, this 20-second attention span that somehow we've developed over the last 25, 30 years.
Right. And Nick, just to throw something out to the audience, as Billy mentioned, the average person, they've got a life. They don't have time to maybe vet all this stuff. But just as a great example, if you want to see what you're talking about when it comes to what we're being fed versus what the world's being fed, take a look at the Time magazine covers for the same issue around the globe. You will notice that the rest of the world gets one cover story, and the United States of America gets some watered down.
We get the kindergarten version.
The kindergarten version, and it's it's the same thing during 9/11. I was stationed in Italy when it happened. The news over there is completely different than the watered down kindergarten version of the stuff that we see here in the States, and we have to understand that as responsible citizens, that we're not going to get. It's going to take some work to find out what is actually going on.
Well, we have Goat Killer 68 here, kind of give the flip side of what you were talking about here, Trek. Remember when NBC interrupted a senator talking about the NSA to talk about Justin Bieber going to jail? If you guys remember that.
I did not, and that's awful.
Yeah, I think that was MSNBC.
I had no idea. I had no idea he went to jail because I have a Bieber filter on all my news. I can't actually hear his name.
So we have no one on the panel that's a believer, huh?
No.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
It's okay. If you hung out with Peter Palma more, you'd learn it. Don't worry. But that's for another day. And cat shirts, a lot of cat shirts, but another time. So, when we look at kind of, what we've been discussing here, which coincidentally is such a weird segue into your project. So, again, for everybody out there, please go check out, again, on YouTube, the link to the Kickstarter is below. He has a video explaining it here. And, again, for everybody listening on podcasts, it's going to be in the show notes as well. But when, back kind of this disinformation and facts and, all this type of information, as you said in your video, if you look at the crime rate, it's went down by over 50%. That involves gun-related crime, correct?
Yes. Well, the violent crime rate has been cut in half, and the murder rate in this country has been cut in half. And then also, an interesting report that I referenced in there was a report that came out from the Justice Department in May of 2013. So that was only, what, like a month after the vote didn't pass in the House for the background checks. So it's interesting that this report came out afterwards. It was a report on firearms violence, which I hate, but since the report references the word firearms violence, I'm going to use it. So please don't tweet me and say all violence. Why are we fracturing it out? I'm only fracturing out because the CDC does and everybody else does. But it shows in that report that non-fatal firearm crimes are down 70% from 1993 to 2011. 70%, right? Now, I think it's convenient that that came out a month after the vote, you know, because that probably could have steered a lot of people in a certain direction if that report came out in February. But this information's out there. The media doesn't report on it. We all know if it bleeds, it leads. That's what is sensational to the news. They want blood. They want violence. They want to keep people in a state of fear. When people are in a state of fear, it's easier to control them. Should be no shock to anybody. Fear is an extremely powerful tool. Politicians love it. Anybody in a position of power loves fear. If I can make you afraid, I can convince you of anything.
Well,
anything.
For anybody out there that's a comm major and have taken any sort of persuasion classes, you will know that fear is one of the greatest motivating factor in any sort of persuasion. So breaking those stats right there, and then again you break it down in your video too that I believe is from the Pew Research Center. People believe that gun-related crimes have actually gone up, right?
Yeah, 50.
It's up. It's worse. We're going to hell in a handbasket, right?
56% of Americans think it's getting worse. And I'm sure there's varying degrees in there, right? That's 56% think it's getting worse. I'm sure there's probably a good portion that think it's at epidemic levels. Only 12% think it's going down, and whatever the difference is there, thinks it's staying the same. So only 12% of people really know the stats. And I think that's fascinating. That's really concerning because, of course, we know that perception problem that we have there is often what's utilized to push for more gun control.
Absolutely.
And it also prevents us from having an honest dialogue about it, because I'm concerned. Like, I think it's a noble effort to want to reduce crime in your country. Like, I'm being genuine about this. But we can't even have that conversation until we lay the facts out. We can't even get there to have that conversation until everybody has the information. Because I would like to know, where's the crime coming from? What are the conditions in these areas that help breed violence? Is some of our violence problem in this country a result of policies we've passed? You know, so those are the things I want to explore. And you know, I have some really interesting people I want to talk to that I won't mention because I don't want to tip off any journalists. But you know, there's a lot of questions out there about crime that no one is asking. I think the first question someone should ask is, how did it decrease by 50%? Right? If you were a journalist and you really wanted to help, you know, get the message out on this great success we've had, wouldn't the first question you ask, how did this happen? And nobody asked that question. Nobody.
You think that's such a dramatic number that would be the first thing.
Yeah.
Right? 56%.
Yeah. If I was a journalist, that's what I would be asking.
Yeah, 56%. 56%. I mean, name another any statistic that there's some sort of swing of 56%.
No.
I don't know.
Yeah, that seems dramatic. So, so protecting liberty, by the way, is the name of the project. So, can you kind of tell us a little more about it? You know, the goals and what you want to accomplish with it.
Well, you know, as I stated in it, it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that follows me on social media. Obviously, I'm a strong defender of the Second Amendment, and I laid that out. That's my bias. That doesn't mean I don't want to try to solve some challenges that we have as a country. So, I don't know where I'm headed with the crime aspect of it. Obviously, there's some interesting statistics that I've uncovered. There's some people I want to go and talk to about that and try to understand that better. There's some policy people I want to talk to, and there's some naysayers that I know are going to disagree, especially with my stance on the Second Amendment. And so I want to go after some of those people as well. I've been criticized by some for saying I'm entering this with a predetermined idea of where I'm going to have it end. Well, I told you right in the beginning, I believe in the Second Amendment. I don't believe, even if this crime was a problem, and it is a problem in certain areas in the country, it is. I do not want to minimize that. But overall, we have to recognize that it's down tremendously. But I think what some people don't understand, at least maybe about me, is I don't ever believe, as a nation, if we are going to solve a problem, that the first solution to the problem should be restricting one of our rights. I'm not even sure it should ever be a solution, okay? And even if it was a solution, it should be the very last solution. And I'm still not even comfortable with it being the last solution. But often, every time we're faced with a crisis as a country, the first solution you hear is, well, you got to give something back, right? Patriot Act, we got to know what's in your medicine cabinet. We got to know what you're talking about on the telephone, right? Some crazy kid goes off with a gun. You guys and your guns, you got to give that back, right? We hear this time and time again. And so that's my bias, right? I don't believe that violating any of our natural, civil, constitutionally protected rights is ever a solution to a problem. Yeah. And even when the problem is poorly defined, is even more concerning.
Well,
we've got a history of knee-jerk reactions from politicians that are specifically designed to appease the uneducated masses. And I don't mean uneducated in an insulting means, but let's face it, the majority of this society are uneducated on issues that have to do with them and their rights. This project is so important, and Billy does one of his amazing videos where he breaks down a shooting as a drowning. And he talks about a local town's reaction to what happens when a young person drowns in a body of water. And it's not to say, everybody can't go in the pool. Swimming is no longer allowed. We've had deaths. They implement plans and procedures, lifeguards, swimming for younger folks. But when we have one person in a mass shooting that happens in an area where people are already restricted on their rights, and they say, you all have to give up a right. And that's their knee-jerk reaction. Everybody, and a lot of people in this country would say, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. But if you told them, well, hey, some kid, a couple kids drown in Nebraska, so I'm sorry, but the Great Lakes are completely off limits to all you kids for this summer, they would lose their minds. Because they'd say, well, what about this program or the buddy system, or make sure they have to have life vests, but don't just kick them out of the water. But you crazy people with your guns that would defend my life or the life of my loved ones, if you had the chance, well, I can't take that risk because that gun that you have in your safe might do some harm, so let's get rid of them all. And that's one of the best videos I've seen, and that's why this project is so important, because it's going to get to the point, the root cause. It's going to get to, or the best of his ability, get to the root cause so we can try to have an educated discussion. And I know that having an educated discussion about these topics with people is already difficult enough, especially when they're unable to get over their emotional involvement with the topic at hand instead of having a factual conversation.
Well, for all those out there too, please go check out Billy's YouTube channel. He just put out another great video about cars. Don't hear all the time if we can save just one life. If we can save just one life. Well, if we banned all cars, wouldn't we save like thousands and thousands of lives?
35,369. Don't quote me. I can't. It's 35,000 something.
Yeah. I mean, why don't we just ban cars?
But people don't want to hear that, and that's exactly what it is. You wait a second. I can't text and drive then and go down to Starbucks and get my $5 black coffee because you can't take away my right to drive. And then that's where we get into the argument about let's talk about what are rights and what are privileges and what are little perks about being an American. But this isn't a right, and you're trying to just knee jerk and take away people's rights. People that you've never met, people that are good people until proven otherwise, and that's what this society is all about.
Yeah.
And we saw that after the unfortunate comments that the fraternity kids in Oklahoma said a couple weeks ago. It was probably already a month ago by now, and what was so interesting to that when their racist song came out was so many people came out and said, First Amendment goes too far. Right? The First Amendment, we got to really pull this back here. I mean, this is, people are pushing this way too far. I mean, the First Amendment doesn't give you a right to say that. That argument was coming from the left, which traditionally has been a strong defender of First Amendment rights. This is the shift that you see happening right now. And like I said, what we started this off with, freedom of speech defends the worst type of speech, and it should. It should defend the speech that you never want to say, the speech that makes you sick to your stomach. That's the speech it should defend.
Right.
And just where we're headed with that is extremely concerning.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have obviously we have the Second Amendment that's vilified. So are we almost getting to the point now where the First Amendment's getting vilified?
Oh yeah, we're already there.
Yeah, pick it. You know what? You're gonna run out of air if you try to say, well, the First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Fifth Amendment. Just say that society is becoming so irresponsible that they want safeguards put in place so that people will live like they expect them to live versus being responsible folks that keep to themselves and don't tread on others. And that's what it really boils down to. And I make the joke about the cake issue. You've got people on the left that are like, well, this baker should have to make a cake for a homosexual couple, and you have people on the far right that are saying, no, they shouldn't. But what all Americans should be saying is, if you're a private business owner, you should be able to do what you want and let the consequences of a free society be your fate as a baker. And we are so far past, people get so emotionally wrapped up, and they're like, yeah, they should have to make that cake. And then you say, well, what if you're the baker, and I'm going to come in and make I'm going to ask for the most offensive cake that you can imagine. They'll go, well, wait a second, that's not fair. Welcome to freedom. That's the big trick. And so many people can't handle it. A lot of people cannot handle that.
Freedom cake is delicious, though.
Freedom cake is amazing.
So, kind of going back to your project here, Billy. So, was there anything that specifically kind of prompted this for you to do it? Is it a culmination of the videos and the stuff that you've been doing? Or was it, you turned on your TV and it accidentally came up on MSNBC and?
Well, I've had this, I've been working on this since January. Had the idea for a couple years, but ever since long ago when I went to film school, I've always loved documentary film, and I've had the opportunity to make a lot of different short films and other projects for an assortment of clients from all over the world over the last 10 years. And, finally it's time to make something that I want to make. Not make something for other people, but tell a story that's important to me and a story that I know is important to so many other people out there. Because no one else is going to make this story. Hollywood is not going to tell this story. So I feel it has to be told. And it's something I'm extremely passionate about, and that's kind of what started it. It's just really watching the news, and I've always been interested in the media and how things are slanted. It's fascinating to me, and I want to help expose it.
Okay, so jumping into the Kickstarter project here, for those unfamiliar, we're recording this April 9th, and there's 19 more days to go. It's running, I think, from March 29th to April 29th, if I have my dates correct. We're 10% is out of the way so far. So
we got a long ways to go. It's a lot of money. $225,000 is a lot of money, but there's after Kickstarter fees and everything, that comes out to roughly about $200,000, and that's the bare minimum to deliver a finished film. And I want everybody to know, I'm not being compensated with that money. That money goes entirely to the production of the film. I think that I'm gambling on my ability to make a film. I think I'm going to make a great film, and hopefully on the back end of the film, if people want to download it, people want to go and see it, hopefully I can pay myself. But that's a bonus at the end. And it's the bare minimum. I mean, when you see, for example, Bowling for Columbine was over a $4 million film.
Jeez.
So this is what we're up against. This is what we're competing with. I'm trying to make something of a Hollywood caliber documentary for $200,000. And I know how to make films, right? This is what I've been doing. So I know where all the money gets spent, and it's expensive. Licensing news footage on this is really going to break the bank on this documentary because it's expensive.
So I guess for someone I'm not familiar with licensing news, can you kind of you have to pay to talk about news?
Well, if I wasn't going to distribute the film and possibly get it on TV, no. If I was just going to make something and release it on YouTube and hope 30,000 people watched it, I probably wouldn't have to license footage. I could probably maybe get away with it. But if you're going to try to take a film to Discovery Channel, History Channel, theaters, make it available on Netflix, it's all got to be licensed. All the footage has to go through clearance. Everything has to be checked off. Otherwise, you're going to have a copyright infringement on your film. And the last thing I would want is to have a film be done and have it pulled because of copyright infringement. So first and foremost, all the footage has to be cleared. It's extremely expensive. First of all, you have to get a high-quality version of it. So you're paying, an archivist to get your high-quality version, and then you have to figure out what you're going to use, and then you got to go back and negotiate a price. So it's time-consuming, it's expensive, but it's the right way that it needs to be done.
Okay. Can you break down your timeline of your project and when you're hoping to get it out?
Well, I think it's really the goal is to get it out to the run up to the 2016 election. That is the goal. So I want to start shooting in May. And it's going to take, probably a good, and this is an accelerated, production schedule. Normally something like this would take a lot longer, but fortunately I've been working on it for a while, getting my bearings straight. I hope to have a rough cut done by SHOT Show 2016. Rough cut of the film, and then the film would be released in, an April-May timeframe of 2016.
And then, and I'm going to mention this because I know you're such an guide one, and I know you're putting your own money into this as well. I know you're selling an absolute beautiful car that I do not think I could ever get rid of. Trek's going through the same right now. He's selling the Wagon of Doom, the Jeep of Doom. But I just want to mention out there that I know that you're spending a large chunk of your own money on this as well. So
actually, my car is actually in. If you watch the video, the promo video, Protecting Liberty, there's a quick 2-second shot of a red car. That's my car in that shot. That was a music video I did. So I'm putting her up for sale. Filmmaking. Anybody out there who's been involved in creative projects knows that pet projects can be amazingly painful. You're invested in them, and there's just something inside of you that wants to get it done, and you'll do whatever it takes to get it done. And that's kind of where I'm at on this. I've spent a lot of years working for other people, making films for other people, and now I want to make this film for the Second Amendment community. And we need it. But I can't get it done without everybody else, unfortunately. If I had the money, I would pay for it myself. I don't have the money, so I need people's help. And I think there isn't anything greater than when you see a community come together to support something. I think Second Amendment advocates are some of the most generous, people out there. And in times of need, when the news is coming down on us, when potential legislation is in Congress There is no other group of people that stands up and speaks as loudly as Second Amendment advocates. And but I need them. I need everybody's help.
Yeah, and Nick, I want to jump in on this. Let's break this down. Every year at hunting season, the greatest military, not U.S. military, takes to the woods in this country. In the state of Michigan, over 400,000 people bearing arms taken to the woods to get their game, whatever it might be. Billy needs 11,250 people to put $20 a piece into this. That's out of in America. We need 11,250 people to chip in $20. That's freaking 4 Starbucks coffees. And that's to protect the rights. And we get all these people that are out there, oh, I'm just a dove hunter. I'm just a deer hunter. What does that have to do with me? Well, guess what? That operating system on your beautiful semi-automatic shotgun and rifle, it's the exact same thing that's in the AR-15, that beautiful handgun that's been handed down for years and years. It's the same thing that you've got in a law enforcement officer's handgun. We need to get people involved. We need a small fraction of the shooting and pro-Second Amendment community get in there. Let's get it done. I'm going to chip in my $20. I need 11,249 other people to do so. Let's do it. We need to get it done. Good things are going to happen.
No, and I think too that's one of the best part of Ian. If you have not seen his videos, is Billy can convey the information. He can convey the statistics, but he puts the truth out there. And I think that's the best part about Billy is, whatever the truth might be, whatever you find on this project, you're going to share, Billy. I mean, just from watching your videos and having a chance to talk with you a little bit and meeting you at SHOT Show, you're after the truth, whatever that might be, right? Whatever you find, that's what it is.
Oh, absolutely. And there's some things with crime that aren't pretty. I'll be the first to tell you that crime is not pretty. There's nothing pretty about crime and violence. And nobody's told that at all. So I think there's something to be said there.
Yeah. But back to you though, Trek, and it's something that the hunting thing and not kind of getting into the rights thing drives me nuts a little bit. And I don't know if those are familiar, but I believe this was last year's ruling. It could be last year, the year before. Supreme Court in Pennsylvania, they ruled that the Second Amendment does not protect hunting. The Second Amendment and hunting are not tied together at all by any means. I don't know if you guys were familiar with that. That was a court ruling, I think, a year or two ago in a Supreme Court in Pennsylvania. The Second Amendment does not protect hunting.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I mean, maybe some people don't want to hear that, but I mean, the Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting.
Sure. No, not at all. And so, back to your kind of part there, Trek, is this is for, it doesn't matter what you shoot if it's an over and under shotgun, if you go out dove hunting, if you like to shoot IPSC targets and shoot, competitively in 3-gun, it doesn't matter. This is, this project of Billy helps everybody.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if you like guns or not. I think, again, if we can find the root cause of violence in this country, isn't that a good thing for everybody?
100%.
Yeah. Well, and I think the important thing to mention there too is oftentimes we hear one solution, typically a bad solution to this crime problem. First, you got to understand crime is amazingly complex, right? It's so complex, and typically there's a legislation that's always put up in Congress is in response to a mass shooting. Right, and typically what they present, you realize, wouldn't have any impact on that mass shooting, right? Background checks, well, the kid stole his mom's guns, so the background check wasn't going to stop this from happening. And not to mention, mass shootings account for a fraction of the overall violence in this country. So why would you design a law, a bad law at that, targeting a fraction of the crime in the country? Wouldn't you want to go after the 80-90% of the crime, right? Wouldn't you go after the biggest chunk first?
No, because it's not the stuff that's making the news headlines.
Right, exactly. It's like going after the AR-15, semi-automatic bans, right? We have less than 325 semi-automatic rifles, are far less than that are actually used in crime or murders around the country. So why are you going after? Well, I know you why. You know why you don't go after handguns? because they cross over so many different demographics. Minorities have handguns, women have handguns, right? It crosses over Democrat and Republicans. But when you look at the AR-15s, they think this is a very small subset of people, so they think they can pick it off. That's why you go after those. You pick those little things off around the edges, right? That's the plan.
Yep.
Until you're picked apart.
Yeah, whittle it away till it's gone.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. Well, again, Billy, I hope we can make this project go through, because I think it'd be really important for everybody. And that's the thing too, that I'm sure you'll probably get all sorts of non-freedom loving people will say come and troll and all this stuff. But again, the project of it would help everybody, and that's what I really want everybody to understand out of this would be. This helps everybody. Finding the root cause of bad things that are happening in this country and then proposing a solution or finding what's making them worse. This helps everybody. It doesn't matter if you like guns or not. And that's the thing I just want to try to stress to everybody out there. If, share this with, share his video with, it can be anybody. This helps everybody.
And if anybody, hasn't seen any of my videos, go check out my channel. Look at the caliber of the film that the short videos I put on YouTube, the caliber of those videos and the arguments I make. Now, imagine those being expanded into a feature-length film, because a lot of the topics I talk about there are very complex topics, and it's hard to squeeze everything into 3 to 4 minutes, right? And I haven't done some of those topics justice. So, the main topic in this film is this misperception problem we have with the media and crime, because that's primarily used to erode our rights, at least potentially with legislation. But there's a whole other host of problems going on around that. And so there's going to be some interesting things that I hope to talk about in the film. But like I said, I need everybody's help to help make this happen.
Okay, so how do you? And I kind of got the question here from the chat here of if we can get this project to go through, which we'll get it there somehow. We will make sure it happens. How do you feel that this will be received? You talk about like the Hollywood and the distribution type of stuff. How do you feel that this will be, received, and will you have any troubles getting this out, or what's kind of I guess your goal on that part?
Well, it's funny with documentary film. I guess it's okay to have a bias, an anti-gun bias, and make a documentary and have it do $20 million in box office, right? That's okay. But to have a pro-Second Amendment bias in a documentary, Hollywood's going to freak out about it. That's just, I know that's going to happen, right? They're going to say, oh my gosh, no, a guy that used to work for the NRA making a documentary about the Second Amendment and this and this and this. Listen, I'm not going to be able to fight that. None of us are. Any pro-Second Amendment documentary is going to have the left media in this country bash it. There's nothing to do about that. But one thing we need to remember is, as Second Amendment supporters, often we think everybody has their mind made up with the Second Amendment, right? Everybody's either pro or against. It's not true. There are so many people in this country that do not have their minds made up. They might not even have any opinion at all. This documentary is a documentary that you can go and show to your friend that might not own guns, might not have many opinions on the Second Amendment. This is the documentary for your friend. And we all have those friends. We all have those people that you're like, oh, no, you just need to watch this video, and you'll completely understand why I believe in the Second Amendment, right? So this is going to be that documentary that you can show those people. Sure, there's going to be a fraction of this country that's not going to be interested, more than a fraction, in this documentary at all. And there's nothing I can do about that. I'm not worried about them. I've taken a lot of heat for some videos I've put out there. You can Google MSNBC, Daily Beast, Slate, Atlantic. I've had some people say some horrible things about me. So
I can't believe someone called you a hipster. That had to cut deep.
Yeah. I've been,
where it was cool.
I've been called worse. So, but I can handle the heat. I'm not worried about myself. This is just that. This is going to be that movie for everybody else.
Yeah, this really boils down to we as a society, we need to, especially as responsible citizens, we need to support those people that are defending and exercising their rights. We need to support the people that choose not to, and we need to give zero ground to people that would ask that we give up our rights. And that's why this thing is so important. We can't take any more steps backwards whatsoever.
Yeah.
No.
And
I said this before. There's no more compromise when it comes to the Second Amendment. I'm sorry.
Right.
Done.
no, I agree wholeheartedly. And so something here, we got a couple questions here in the YouTube chat here, and so for anybody out there that hasn't got one, put it in real quick here, and we're going to cover it. But something I do want to mention here, because I saw it back there earlier, and I can't seem to find it in the chat here. We got a bunch of comments. Would be, this isn't like the NRA is propping you up to do this, or they're not pushing money under the rug to you. You're doing this is on your own. We don't want to say unbiased. We covered that earlier, but this is you doing this project of something that you wanted to do, right?
No, I mean, I never even talked to anybody at the NRA about this project. So when I announced this project, just like it was a surprise to everybody else out there, I'm sure it was a surprise to them. I worked with them through the election cycle, and that was all the need that they had for my video commentary at the time, and I enjoyed my time working there, but and this documentary has nothing to do with them at all. But publicly speaking, the Firearms Coalition Policy did come out in support of the documentary, and they're actually raising money for it from their members. So I still consider that a crowd sourcing. They just kind of opened up their membership to try to get their membership to support the film. And it's another reason why I wanted to go crowdfunding too. I wanted everybody to see where the money came from.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure there's going to be someone that's going to say, NRA guy makes a documentary. And there's nothing I can do about what headlines people are going to write.
No one would say something like that on the internet, would they?
Never.
So we do have several questions here, and there's one here that's really interesting, and I'll hit on this. It's a two-part question, and this could really be maybe the whole point of your documentary here. And so I'm going to throw it to you first, Billy, then Trek, if you got anything, throw it in. So we have Alan Saar asked, what is the ultimate goal, first part, then chipping away at our rights, quotation marks, to what end?
Well, ultimate goal, first of all, is to expose the perception issues that are created by the media. And the media has become extremely powerful, and that might be obvious to some of us, but it's not obvious to other people. So I haven't found, and I could be wrong, but I have not found any other issue that the media talks about where there is such a perception issue as there is with crime. Media makes it seem like violence is epidemic. The data is exact opposite. Exact opposite. So that's the biggest thing, is to expose that. I mean, because that's a huge disconnect, and that is used to shape people's perceptions, and as we all know, perception is reality for many people. To what ends? Well, I mean, I think eventually what you do, if you don't like guns, is you continue to restrict the right as much as possible. You put so many hurdles in the way. You create so many obstacles that people just say, forget it. That's a hassle. I'm not going to exercise that right. Now, actually removing the Second Amendment and amending the Constitution, I don't see that happening anytime in our lifetime. I could be wrong. Don't quote me, but that's a huge hurdle. And gun control advocates know that. So what do? You make it as difficult as possible to exercise your right. And anybody that doesn't know this, go look up how difficult it is to buy a gun if you live in New York City. Not New York State, New York City. Look at the interview process. It could take you up to a year just to get that gun. What if you're a single mom defending yourself in your apartment and you broke up with your boyfriend? He's threatening you. Is your boyfriend, is that ex going to wait a year to potentially harm you? No, so you're being delayed a year to exercise your constitutional right. That is a perfect example of hurdles being put in the way. in the way of you exercising your right, and most people will just say forget it. That's why there's very few gun owners in New York City.
Well,
Yeah,
go ahead, Trek.
I was going to say the only thing I'll jump in, the great question, to whittle away to what end is Billy's talking about, to have responsible citizens unable to exercise their rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. New York City is a perfect example. Look at every other city around there, especially very gun-free zone, happy cities. It's exactly what it is. It's restricting law-abiding, responsible people from the ability to defend themselves, and they're basically putting them out to pasture. So that's the best thing. I mean, you keep whittling away rights, you're going to get to a point where you have a citizenry that can no longer exercise the most basic premise of what makes a free person a free person.
And I don't know if I told Bill, I don't know if I told you this or not before, Billy, but I work at a gun shop. My personal opinion is, if you look at all these hurdles and stuff they have to go through, who often needs that gun most frequently would be more than likely a person who is lower on the poverty chain in a bad area that needs it to defend their family. And that's what drives me nuts more than anything, especially working in a gun shop, is the people that need something, especially like in Wisconsin, we have a 2-day handgun weight that supposedly I hear is supposed to be brought up to be removed this next cycle here. But that 2-day wait, who does that hurt the most? Generally hurts the person who needs it the most. And if you look, probably statistically, it's probably a single mother in a not very good area that's, that needs that to protect her family. And that's what drives me nuts more than anything, is it hurts the people who need it the most. For a regular guy out at my private hunt club, spending $2,000 on a Kimber and waiting 2 days, what is that?
2 days he shouldn't have to wait.
Yeah, but I'm saying to him it doesn't make a difference for his life. But for somebody that needs it, this could be,
No, and it's a yeah. Look at New York City, and look at if you have resources, if you're wealthy, you can get the permit process done. You can afford to take time off of work to go in and do your interview process, right? You can pay the whatever $100 fingerprint fee and the $300+ pistol permit fee. You can afford that stuff. But you're right. When you're going to pay as much in fees as an actual gun might cost you, and you need that protection right away, and you might not be living in the best neighborhood, you're right. Those laws are affecting lower income people the most. And that's a tragedy. When we start to look at our rights, and you're saying, if you're wealthy, if you have resources, you can access this right. If you're poor, living in a bad area, you can't take time off work, forget you. It should never come to that, ever.
Sorry, do you need to go in there, Trek?
I was going to say, we just have to think about this from a very big perspective. The only way that we're allowed to have our rights whittled away is by inaction. And as long as people sit by and go, it's never going to affect me, I've got nothing to worry about, I've got $50 for my fingerprint fee, what's it matter? Well, when they up it to 75 and that's your gas payment to get to work, it's going to start to matter. And because you didn't raise your voice and let your voice be heard, demand that of your representatives. Don't back down and speak up. And we all need to, all of us.
Yeah. We have another question here from, I hope I say his name, Ragnar Odison. He wants to know if the film will touch on the amount of people that use firearms to protect themselves.
I'm sure I might, I'll probably touch on that. The issue with some of that, the data is really hard to pin down on that because a lot of that data isn't collected, unfortunately. I wish it was. But I will definitely touch on that. It's finding comparable data to FBI crime data in that, and I know Guns Save Lives has been collecting news articles, but there's more to be, there's more to look into there. I know we have ranges. Unfortunately, the ranges are pretty wide. I mean, we've heard of defensive gun uses every year of being, from 8,000 all the way up to millions. So that's a huge challenge when you're trying to pin down data. Why is that range so extensive? Well, first of all, no one really keeps track of it, which is a huge problem. And a lot of times if someone defends themselves with a firearm, sometimes they might not, call the police. Someone pounds on your front door and, you pull back the curtain and they see that you're holding a gun in your hand and all of a sudden they run off, well, did that person actually call the police and report that? So a lot of times those go unreported. But it's something that's definitely underreported, and it needs to be addressed, and it's finding how to pin down that information. That is what concerns me.
Okay. Then we also have Angel Silhouette here with a great comment. I got to read it. So, Billy Johnson is awesome. His voice is as calming as Morgan Freeman's.
Wow, that's an honor.
Then, of course, it wouldn't be a Practically Tactical chat. We have Monderno with one question here. With what does Trek put in his beard besides motor oil? Hashtag sojourn.
This is all natural.
Wait, I gotta zoom in on Trek there. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, that's it for the questions there. And again, I need to thank a bunch of people out here that were watching. We have Informed State of Mind, which, by the way, he put up your Kickstarter on his website, and they run a great freedom-based chat here. We have Alan, Angel, Mateo, another Alan, Scott, EDC, Monderno. Man, we have a ton of people in chat. So I thank you guys very much. You guys carried in a conversation out there, made a whole ton of comments. So I really appreciate you guys out there watching and tuning in. But we're going to go wrap it up here. But, Billy, I kind of want to give, whatever time, if there's something we didn't cover or a subject we didn't discuss, or I just want to give you an open amount of time to discuss or say anything that you might want to need, say, discuss, whatever. I want to give you that time.
Just, I don't sound like a broken record, but, if I don't make this film, I don't think anybody else is going to make this film. They're not going to make the same film that I want to make. And, we've, as Second Amendment defenders, we've taken a beating over the last couple of years. We've taken a beating in the press. We've taken a beating in Hollywood with other documentaries, and there's more documentaries coming. So there's more anti-gun, anti-Second Amendment documentaries in the works. We will see them. So I need everybody's help, and that's the biggest thing. And like Trek said, 11,000 people donate. What was it, Trek? 11,000?
11,250 could donate $20. You're there, buddy.
Right. And, that's not that many. I mean, I have 34,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. So, right? 18,000 people on my Facebook page and 34,000 people on my YouTube channel. I mean, there's the people that I need right there. But, just people need to click on that link and go over there and help the project out. I would really appreciate it, and I won't let them down.
All right.
Likes don't matter. Dollars matter. Likes do not matter. Got to actually get involved.
Yes. Well, again, and thank you for coming on and discussing a whole range of topics there. Again, we kind of covered a lot of stuff that not Second Amendment related. Why does that matter? Well, again, all of our rights are under attack, are they not? Well, the Second Amendment is obviously very important to us. We also need to realize that, everything's under attack. Our way of life.
If you cannot defend yourself, then I don't believe any other rights can exist.
I would agree
with
that.
That's just kind of the way I look at it. I mean, when you look at it from a human right aspect, if a human being does not have the right to defend themselves, I don't know how any of their other rights can exist. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And again, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on. And again, I hope myself and the viewers out here can try to help spread the word on this and help donate. And again, I think we got to have this project be a go. Have to.
Well, hey, Nick, thanks for having me on, man. Really appreciate it, and we should do it again.
Absolutely. So, Trek, I'll go to you again, sir. If you have anything that we didn't cover or you want to make known, I will give you the floor. I yield to the beard.
No, it's great to have this discussion, and we really do. We've got people out there like Billy in the community that are trying to make a difference and trying to get the word out, trying to get some facts out there. But we've got a lot of people out there that are not getting involved, and this is not Billy's rights, this is not my rights, it's not Nick's rights, this is all of our rights. And like I said before, it does not matter if you choose not to exercise them, but do not tolerate anybody that wants to take them from you. That is important. and that's what we're here for. And we got to make this thing a go, because let's get it started.
No. Again, this is why I have you guys on. You guys are like the two smartest guys that I know. So you guys carried the show. I can tell you that you carried the show. So, but I want to wrap it up here again. I want to thank you guys for coming on and discussing all this stuff. So again, for everybody out there, please, that's watching on YouTube, where we're live right now, the link is right below in the description box. You have a link to one of his videos, his channel, as well as the Kickstarter, and as well as a link to these guys right here, trainmdfi.com, Trek's training company in Michigan. The link is below to his website as well. So please go check that out. Again, check out the video. I mean, the production value of your Kickstarter video is obviously fantastic. So
and
that'll give you guys a good
I made
idea.
that in my basement. I made that in my basement. That's exactly where the film will be made, so it will look good.
Man, I feel bad about all my YouTube videos right now that I do. But again, everybody out there,
You can come on up, Nick, and I'll give you some lighting lessons.
I'll need a lot. Trust me. I'll need a lot of lessons how to do this. But again, for everybody out there, check out the show notes if you're listening on podcast. For everyone on YouTube, check down below. All the links are there, so please check it out. And again, if you can help, please do, and contribute with that there. And again, if you can't help out, please at least spread the message. Again, this is a really important project. So for everybody out there, I want you guys please to go check out the Fat to Fit HQ podcast. For everybody out there that is not familiar, I'm going to Chicago, believe it or not. So either A, the Tough Mudder is going to kill me, or B, bullets will kill me in Chicago. But I'm running the Tough Mudder May 9th in Chicago. My wife just asked me what training I'm doing for that. Yesterday I did start my winter training. I ate ice cream. But anyways, so if you guys are interested in joining us, you guys can join the Firearms Radio Network TV. We're going to be the gun runners at the May 9th Chicago Mud Runners Tough Mudder run. You can join that, and if you're interested, email me, and I can actually get you a discount code to join on that. I think get you 20 or 25% off in the Tough Mudder. So if you guys are interested in that as well, email me at nick@firearmsradio.tv, and of course, please check out all the other shows on the iTunes. Yes, right there. Please check out all the other shows on the Firearms Radio Network by visiting firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. While you're there, feel free to email me with any feedback, guest suggestions, compliments, any of that stuff. Please email me at nick@firearmsradio.tv. Also, please give us a review on iTunes. That helps tremendously. So, again, I thank you guys for coming on, talking about something very important that I think should be at the heart and soul of every freedom-loving person in America. Whether guns or not, I think everything we discussed here is important. So I appreciate you guys coming on again.
Thanks for having us.
Hey, thanks, Nick. Really appreciate it.
So as always, guys and gals, I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for listening, as we greatly appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys next week for another episode of Practically Tactical.